Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where in this episode, holy moly, you guys are in for a treat. In this episode, OP encounters a granny while at the store, but little does she know, the granny is a psycho. So grab yourselves a drink, kick back, relax, and strap yourselves in because this is a wild ride. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your posts to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened earlier today, over the course of about 3 to 4 minutes, and here's some relevant background. I broke my ankle and a few toes a while back, and my cast was removed 3 weeks ago, so I am mobile, but I'm down to using one crutch, mostly for balance. This has meant that my brother's been chauffeuring me around everywhere, including to and from work. He was running late today, so I wobbled my way down to the supermarket to grab some milk, and told him to pick me up outside the store at the little pick-up drop-off point. So there I was, sitting on the bench outside the store waiting when a wild mother-in-law appears, with her daughter-in-law and grandkid. Now I'm not sure how old the kid was, I'm no good at judging kids' ages, but based on her stream of babbling, I don't think she could speak yet. She was sitting in the little chair thing in the shopping cart and she seemed to be quite happy. Mother-in-law was an older woman who was walking slowly, but she seemed to be fine. Daughter-in-law parked the shopping cart and the kid beside me and told mother-in-law to wait here. She'll go get the car, so mother-in-law doesn't have to walk across the parking lot. From what I got from the conversation, mother-in-law had been moaning about her feet and she wanted to sit down. Daughter-in-law was trying to get her to sit on the bench and mother-in-law was martyring herself. I promptly put a stop to all of that by offering mother-in-law my dry part of the bench and moving further away to lean against the wall. Mother-in-law did not even look at me before sitting down, like she'd just been crowned a throne. Daughter-in-law then kissed her kid and told her, "Mommy will be back in a moment. You be good for Granny and then we'll go for a fun ride in the car, okay?" Hearing that, the kid is happy and excited for the car ride, and Mom disappears. As soon as daughter-in-law was out of earshot, I could not believe what I was hearing. Mother-in-law turns to the kid and she said, "You are such a bad girl. See, Mommy's leaving you here. She's gone without you. She's not coming back. No car for you." Cue the kid bursting into tears and screaming for her mom. I'm not sure how much the kid understood of what mother-in-law said. It might have been all, or she could have just understood the no car part. Either way, it was a crappy thing to say to your grandchild, or any child to be honest. I just looked right at her and I gave her the raised eyebrow look and some serious glaring, which probably gave away the fact that I heard her. She completely changed her tune, loudly telling the kid that she was only joking, and Mommy will be right back, don't you worry, Granny's right here. This didn't really have much of an effect on the kid, and she was working herself into a state of hyperventilation, so mother-in-law decides to take her out of the seat. She then plonked the screaming kid on her feet, and then she turned back around to sit on the bench. And guys, this kid could have given Usain Bolt a run for his money. The moment the little girl had her wobbly balance, she made a run for it, screaming for her mommy, straight towards the road. There was about 15 feet between the road and me, and about half that between the kid and the road. In the time it took for me to realize that the kid was heading for the road and that mother-in-law hadn't seen a thing, the kid had run onto the parking lot. I have never moved so fast in my life. I managed to grab the kid and make it back onto the pavement before my ankle realized that a full sprint was not a good idea. Neither of my legs were interested in supporting me after that, so I just sort of crumple into a heap on the pavement with this kid. The next thing I know, the daughter-in-law's there taking the kid from me. It was her car that she'd run in front of. At this point, daughter-in-law was crying, the kid was crying, I was crying because it hurt to run to save the girl, and mother-in-law was still sitting on the bench and she had the audacity to just stare at us. Anyways, I blame it on the adrenaline/pain because normally I wouldn't get involved, but I told daughter-in-law exactly what happened, all of it, even what mother-in-law had said to the kid. When I left, daughter-in-law was still screaming at mother-in-law. Update number 1. So because I had an appointment with my physio this morning, I decided to wait for that, instead of heading to the doctor's last night. So long story short, my physio was convinced my ankle had re-broken and sent me up to x-ray. A nurse stuck me in a wheelchair to take me, and we got to chatting. The nurse basically asked me, "So how did you manage to hurt yourself this time around?" And that's when I told her, "Oh, I just chased after a kid that ran into traffic." Hearing that, the nurse says, "My goodness, how did that happen? When was this?" I tell the nurse, "Yesterday." I then get ready to tell the story when the nurse says, "Wait, was this at this supermarket at this address?" I say to her, "Yeah." And the nurse says, "Oh my goodness, that was my niece." So yeah, I found out that mother-in-law was her mother. She then told me that sister-in-law took off and left her mother at the store yesterday, and that she's pretty sure that her brother and sister-in-law are now no contact. Sister-in-law has been pushing for no contact, but her brother is a mama's boy and had been reluctant. She's already no contact with her mother after she caught her intentionally pinching her newborn. She also told me that her niece is fine, but her sister-in-law got into a big fright. So there you go. It's a damn small world. Update number 2. So I really didn't expect to have an update for this again, as I was pretty sure it was all over, but I was wrong. I had another physio appointment today, and I ran into the kid's aunt again. It turns out that she's training to be a physio, so I'll probably see her a lot. After my appointment, she asked if she could talk to me, so we had to sit down and chat. It turns out insane Granny has gone completely bananas. She's apparently got enough sense about her to realize that the kid's mom now has a damn good reason to go no contact, along with the kid. So knowing that she's probably about to be cut off, she made a preemptive strike against the kid's mom and dad. She called the police and told them about the incident in my original post, except she's completely changed the story. According to her, the kid's mom was being mean, abusive, and neglectful to the kid, and insane Granny had called her out on it, which evolved into an argument. She told police that while they were arguing, the kid just ran off into the road, and insane Granny noticed and ran after her. That's when the kid's mother then snatched the kid from Granny and left Granny at the store. There was no mention of me. Based on how quickly things have moved, they think that insane Granny had told police this story on the day of the incident, not the day after. The police are investigating, and they also have to inform social services, who then have to do an initial assessment, talking to the kid's school, doctor, etc. Basically, there's a few compulsory boxes to be ticked before deciding whether or not to carry out a more in-depth investigation. And there isn't much you can do to stop it. So the police dropped in to visit the kid's mom and dad last Thursday. The kid's mother told her version of events, but really couldn't give much specifics as she wasn't really there. She only really knew what I had told her. So the police, and presumably social services, now have two conflicting reports, one of which claims the involvement of a third party, which is me. The next day, they received a notice that social services would be in touch. This has lit a fire under the kid's dad's ass, and he confronted insane Granny. And here are the highlights, told to me at least. 1. That Granny's endgame is to get custody of the kid. 2. That she hopes the kid's mom will be jailed. 3. She admitted to lying to the police, but she's confident that the kid's mom can't prove what actually happened, because there's no way she'd be able to find me to corroborate. The kid's aunt was told all this over the weekend, and while everyone seems to be sure that both police and social services won't find any problems, they're understandably nervous. The aunt didn't tell the kid's mom and dad that she'd met me in the hospital for 2 reasons. She didn't actually have my permission to do so, and definitely didn't have my permission to give out my contact details. Basically, the aunt asked if I'd be willing to give my side of the story to police and social services, and could the kid's parents contact me. I've agreed, and the aunt's gonna pass everything on to the kid's parents. Chances are they won't need me to do anything, but you never know. I also pointed out that the security cameras for the store would have caught everything, and that will probably be police's first stop. Update number 3. So the drama continues, and things have gotten interesting. The kid's mom contacted me, and we met up for coffee yesterday. She's a really nice lady who's under a lot of stress. She ended up a bit of a ranting mess, but I don't blame her, to be honest. She did clear a few things up though. That number 1, that the insane Granny did not call the police. She called a friend of hers who works in social services, who then contacted the police. Insane Granny gave her social services friend her version of events, and the friend officially reported the kid's mom, and that's how police became involved. Social services contacted them as they believed the kid to be in immediate danger. The police have found that the kid is in no immediate danger, but they're still investigating what happened at the store. I'm gonna give them my statement at some point next week, and that should hopefully be the end of it. Social service, on the other hand, is a completely different can of worms. Regardless of how they got involved, they still have to do an initial assessment and will also be investigating the incident at the store. From what the kid's mom told me, is Insane Granny's social services friend is either pushing everything or she's actually in charge of the investigation. So far, the social services friend has mostly been doing her job, though rather invasively. She's allowed to speak to all the kids' parents' neighbors, co-workers, the kids' school, and the kids' doctor. What she isn't allowed to do is show up at the kid's parents' house with Insane Granny to try to force a reconciliation. Apparently, Insane Granny really went for it with the manipulation and gaslighting in front of the social services friend. She seems to be trying to make the kid's mom look like the insane one, and between bouts of fake crying, she acted concerned about the kid's mother's mental state, saying she must be hallucinating because she's remembering the incident wrong. She also said that the kid should be placed in her care until all this nonsense is sorted. And lastly, she asked her son, the kid's dad, how the divorce proceedings are going. They're not divorcing, she was just trying to make it look like they are to her friend. When the parents pulled out their trump card, the fact that Aunt is now in contact with me, she started fake crying and asking why Aunt and the kid's mom are lying to everyone. She also said that the kid's mom had dragged Aunt into her delusion and that she needs help. She then turned to the social services friend and told her that Aunt and the kid's mom must be paying some poor homeless girl or student to lie for her. At this point, the kid's mom admits that she lost it at Insane Granny and she was screaming at her to leave. This was convincing enough for the social service friend to suggest to the kid's dad that he might want to have the kid's mom committed to a psychiatric facility. Once the social service friend and Insane Granny left, the kid's parents argued, the gist of it being that the kid's dad was sort of taken in by his mother's insane claims. She didn't tell me much about that, just that he's sleeping in the guest room now. I offered to speak to him, but she thinks that he should trust her without outside input. I've advised her to contact social services herself and give them my contact information so that there's an official paper trail, and Insane Granny's social worker friend can't claim she didn't know anything about me. I've also told her to make a complaint about the social services friend, but she's nervous that doing so right now would make things worse, so that's where we are right now. I doubt there'll be much to update about once I speak to social services and the police, but the kids' parents are gonna keep me in the loop, so if there's any more drama, I'll update again. Another thing is, the kid's mom will definitely be reporting the social services friend. We know what she's doing is illegal. She's just nervous that reporting her right now will just make things worse. I know it won't, you know it won't, and she does know that it won't, but so far, everyone has turned against her, so I don't blame her for feeling this way. Update number 4. So I had asked the kid's mom if she wanted me to go and make a statement to police, or just wait till social services contacts me. She wanted me to go to the police, as she's trying to get a restraining order against Insane Granny. So I went to give my statement to the police, and oh boy has Insane Granny done a number on them. After the kids' parents told her that they were in contact with me, she went to the police, and she told them that I might come in, claiming to have been involved in the original incident at the store. She's managed to weave some intricate lies, essentially trying to discredit me before I gave evidence. This worked, to a certain extent. The officer in charge of the case made it very clear that he thought I was lying, and that I had been paid off. He had asked me a few times how much I was making doing this, and told me I could be arrested for wasting police time. He was immediately dismissive of me and condescending, which I'm ashamed to say I don't respond very well to. I work in forensics, and I've been an expert witness, both educational and reporting. Implying that I could be accepting bribes or I'm lying could potentially kill my career. And there's no way that I'm endangering my career because some manipulative old lady has an officer wrapped around her old witch finger. At the end of the interview, he asked me for my employment details, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of chewed him out a bit, that he'd allowed himself to be completely manipulated by Insane Granny, and I pointed out that it's pure luck, that what I do for a living comes with a lot of credibility. So I set the record straight about Insane Granny. Well, what I know to be fact. I also filled him in, off the record, about what the aunt and the kid's mom had told me, which I obviously can't prove. So we had a chat, and I got a few things straightened out. One of which was that Insane Granny did in fact contact the police after the incident at the store. I was originally told that she had contacted the police, who then contacted social services, and then I was told that it wasn't true. Instead, Insane Granny had contacted her social services friend, who then reported the incident and somehow police got involved. So we think that once Insane Granny had made her report to the police and they said they'd be contacting social services, Insane Granny took it upon herself to contact her social services friend. So we definitely know that social services friend is not officially involved. Insane Granny and her social services friend are basically a rogue duo, going around my town trying to get dirt on the kid's mom. I've reported her, and the police are now aware of her. The officer also told me, as of right now, that Granny has claimed to the police that I, someone she knows absolutely nothing about and met for less than 5 minutes, am 1. A poor student desperate for money. 2. I have a history of lying to the police, and she knows this because apparently I'm friends with the kid's mom's drug addict cousin. 3. I also might be a drug addict. She doesn't know. 4. That I once tried to seduce her son, the kid's dad, which is impressive as I've never met the guy before. I also asked about the security cameras outside the store. That was the first thing they looked at, but they didn't manage to get anything from them as they weren't aimed where we were sitting. So what's still to happen? Well, number 1, the kid's parents will still have an official social services person visit sometime soon. 2, social services will most likely want to talk to me. 3, the police will be going after Insane Granny for wasting police time and filing a false police report. And lastly, there will hopefully be a follow-up to my complaint about the social services friend. Update number 5. Anyways, this update is more weird than dramatic. As some of you know, because of the state of my ankle, I've been staying with my parents and younger brother for the last few months. Well, on Monday, my mom had the day off and she was puttering around the house. My parents' place is in a very rural area, and our closest neighbor is 6 miles away. And our house is at the end of what's essentially a mile-long dirt/trailer track. It's hard to find, and the only strangers we get out here are either the forestry people who missed the forest access road, or 1 or 2 brave Jehovah's Witnesses. With that said, around noon, a car pulls up. However, no one got out. This isn't too unusual, because as I've said, it's usually someone lost. After a few minutes, the car left, and an hour later, the same car pulls up and the same thing happens again. Another hour goes by, and they're back once again. Only this time, 2 women exit the car. They didn't go to the door. Instead, they decide to have a little snoop around. One tried to go around the back of the house, which is currently fenced off. The other starts trying to look inside the windows. So my mom goes out and she asked if she could help them. They very quickly say no, that they were just looking before booking it back to their car and speeding off. Naturally, mom was confused enough and she told my dad, brother, and I what happened, pretty much as soon as we got home. I've definitely been working in forensics too long, as my immediate reaction was that they were casing the place. Now, we have security cameras, and one of the cameras is aimed at the gate that one of the women tried to open to get to the back garden. So we had a little look at the footage, and guess who was trying to open the gate? It was Insane Granny at my parents' place. I have no idea who her friend was or what they wanted. I can only assume that she got this address from the kid's parents. Update number 6. So I had a day off today, and all was quiet on my day off. There was no sign of Insane Granny, thank goodness. I did call the police officer though, who previously took my statement, and he said there's nothing they can do about Insane Granny being at the house. He also warned me to not to try to remove her from the property or set traps, because if she's injured, she can sue. I didn't plan to anyways. The good news is that it's been officially reported, and I've sent in the video of her trying to open the house's gate. Social Services also knows, and they've assured me that they're still investigating Insane Granny's friend. They wanted to know if it was the friend with Insane Granny, but she doesn't appear on tape. I've pointed them in my mother's direction though, as she can give a description of the other woman. I also texted the kid's mom the night mother-in-law came to my house. She was too busy exploding at her husband to reply right away, but he denied giving my address to Insane Granny. No, he's not that stupid. He gave it to the social services friend. Apparently, the social services friend had called him the day after her little intervention, asking for the witness's address, and he just handed it over. Now, I haven't met this guy yet, but I want to kick him in the teeth. From what she said, he seemed to be coming around to the fact that Mommy Dearest is a psycho. But obviously, there's still problems. This incident has caused him to slip back into his previous delusions. He doesn't believe that his own mom would come all the way out here and that I must be lying to them. So she made him call Granny and outright ask her if she's been to my parents' place. As she told me this, I was all ready to send her the video so she could show it to her husband to prove Insane Granny was lying, but that never happened. Insane Granny admitted on speakerphone to the kids' parents that she had been to my parents' place. According to her, she did go to confront me for lying to the police, and to convince me to follow the moral path and save her family by redacting my statement. She also said that the lady that lived at the address, my mom, had never heard of me, and that I didn't give my real address, so I can't be trusted. The kid's mom basically defended me, saying I was staying there, and it turned into a screaming match before Insane Granny hung up. I do get why the kid's mom corrected her, I do, but now it's been confirmed that I do live at that address, and she'll probably come out again. They've also had their initial assessment by the actual social service worker, and it seemed to go well, and they'll be in contact soon. I honestly can't figure out what Insane Granny's plan is here. I'm very suspicious of her immediately admitting to being at my parents' place, unless she did notice the cameras and figured she'd been caught. It is possible they weren't exactly hidden. Update number 7. So, I had an interesting few days. To the total and utter shock of exactly no one, Insane Granny showed up at my parents' place again. I was there alone, and I heard the doorbell but not the car pulling up. I answered the door, and Insane Granny was standing with another woman, who claimed to be from social services. I suspect that this is the elusive social services friend that's been helping. She wanted to interview me about the original incident and my police report. I didn't let them inside the house, and I told the social services lady that there was no way I'm giving her my statement with Insane Granny present, that she shouldn't even be here, and that I should have been contacted before she randomly showed up. The social services lady then backtracked a bit, and then said that it was a friendly, unofficial visit to discuss me redacting my statement to the police. Before I could react to that, Insane Granny opened her mouth, and she asked me in a sickly sweet voice, "Why won't you let us inside the house? Is it because it's full of drugs?" I just ignored her and told them both to leave as she tried to peer around me and into the house. Social services lady kept pushing for this unofficial interview and then said that they could wait while I tidied away the drugs if it made me more comfortable. At this point, I realized that they're both completely insane, and I probably won't be able to reason with either of them. So I asked them to please leave again and told them that I will call the police if they did not comply. That's not exactly a bluff. I would definitely call them. And that's when Insane Granny opened her mouth again, and she asked me, "How much money do you make working as a whore?" Now, she was oddly calm when she asked these questions, like she was asking me about the weather. She did not get an answer though. I just blinked at her and then took out my phone to call the police. I didn't even manage to start dialing before the social services lady said that they were leaving and asked me when I was able to give my statement to her. I told her if social services wants to interview me, it'll be by a different social worker, and that it would be at my place of employment. And then I gave her my business card. That shut her up, and she starts to walk back to her car. Insane Granny, however, wasn't happy that social services lady wanted to leave. She suddenly went from creepy calm and sweet to screaming at me. She had a proper tantrum too. She was stomping her feet, flinging her body about, and she even starts kicking one of my mom's planters repeatedly. I don't know if she was trying to break it or kick it over, but she kept ramming her foot into it while screaming that I'm a lying little bitch, that I'm taking her baby away from her, that I'm scum and trying to ruin her life, and I'm just like the kid's mom, a whore and a slut. I just turned around, went back inside the house, and closed the door on her. I could see from the window that social services lady had pulled Insane Granny back inside the car. They sat there for a few minutes talking before Insane Granny just lost her crap in the car. I contacted the officer that I've been dealing with, and I met him yesterday to report this and to give him the tape. This definitely goes down as an incident of harassment, and I've spoken to HR at work, who's setting up a meeting for me with the solicitor. I've also complained to social services again, and I've updated the kids' parents. I also saw on the tape that before they rang the doorbell, they went snooping again. Not near the house this time, but they were looking in the windows again. I'm not sure what'll happen with this. I'm hoping that social services lady has come to her senses, and she dumps Insane Granny's ass. Or she tries it at my work, which won't go well for her at all. Update number 8. So I called the mom this morning to talk about Insane Granny, and oh boy is she living up to her name. She had called the kid's dad while he was at work last week and left a series of ranting messages. Most were about how she was done with all the petty fighting and how everything was the kid's mom's fault, that he never should have even married her, etc. In one message, she told him that she was putting her foot down, that they were leaving, and that he should meet her at the airport as soon as he left work. He, in what I assume is a very rare moment of intelligence for him, completely ignored her and went home instead after work. And any bets as to what he found when he got home? If you guessed a wide-open front door and a ransacked house, you win a cookie and a drink. If you guessed Insane Granny packing his clothes and belongings into suitcases, you win 2 cookies and a drink. But if you guessed all of the kids' clothes and toys packed into Insane Granny's car along with the actual kid, you win 3 cookies. Yep, Insane Granny was still on the pickup list for the kids' daycare. So she'd packed up all the stuff, picked up the kid, used the hidden spare key to get into the parents' house, packed her son's and granddaughter's belongings, and loaded up the car, with the intent of heading to the airport and leaving the country. Now, I'm not sure what the kid's dad's reaction was, but he did call his wife, and tell her we don't need to pick up the kid from the daycare. When she told me this, I believe my reaction was, oh, how effing thoughtful of him. Anyway, the kid's mom heard Insane Granny in the background and got this story out of him, and I think you probably all heard her roaring when she found out Insane Granny's plan. She immediately called the police while she sped home. The kid's mom pulled up before the police did, and she got her kid out of Insane Granny's car. When she entered the house, Insane Granny lived up to her namesake, and she went insane at her. I wasn't given the details of what she said there, but there was apparently a lot of screaming about the kid's mom stealing her baby and ruining her life. The police arrived, and Insane Granny instantly shut up, and she became all sweet and calm. The police separate the kid's mom and Insane Granny to take statements, and once again, Insane Granny just lies to them. She claimed the kid's dad let her inside the house and that she was helping him move out as the kid's parents were divorcing. I think she was expecting the kid's dad to roll over and go along with her like usual. Instead, he just looked really defeated, and he told police, no, that's not what happened. So Insane Granny was arrested for breaking and entering, but not kidnapping because she technically still had permission to pick up the kid from daycare. And yes, she did plan to leave the country with her, but the fact that she planned for the kid's dad to come too counts as having parental permission to take the child out of the country, as technically the kid would still be in her dad's custody. And yes, she even had a plane ticket for him. Anyways, she was charged and then released on bail, so she's still out there. The kid's dad seems to have seen the light though, which is good. Oh, and social services did get back to them, and they gave them the all clear. They're not taking the investigation any further. The kid's parents are still together. The husband's agreed to counseling, so we'll see what happens. I spoke to the aunt as well, and she's completely on the kid's mom's side. She doesn't have anything nice to say about her brother right now. As for the social services friend, she has been fired, and she's basically blacklisted from her work. She was found to be a danger to the public and service users. There will be a hearing sometime in the next 6 months or so that I'll be testifying at too. Final update. Okay, so the last time I left you, Insane Granny had been released on bail. She's not allowed to contact the kid, her parents, or me. As far as I was concerned, this stuff was over. The only problem I had was that when someone is electronically tagged, a condition of her bail, they need the addresses of the places they're not allowed to go, so they know not to go there. In my case, this was my parents' place, where she'd already been, my main office, and my own home. Thankfully, my place has 2 security doors, and I'm never there. Essentially, she couldn't get to me at home, and my workplace is basically a police station, so I was happy enough to think that apart from court, I would never have to lay my eyes on Insane Granny again. But yeah, I'm a moron. Bail and being electronically tagged barely slowed down Insane Granny. She turned her insanity on me. You see, the building I work in is a rather large and sprawling building. It has multiple entrances and a police station in front of it. As a result, it also has multiple addresses. Because of my leg, I haven't been driving to work. Instead, my brother's been dropping me off. This has meant that I've been entering and exiting the building through the police station instead of the lab entrance. The police station, which has a different address to the lab. I had no idea, but apparently this meant that nobody was notified when Insane Granny started parking herself across the entrance to the police station. I never noticed her parking there, nor did I notice when she started following me. And yeah, it does get worse. So by now, most of you know that I work in a branch of forensics that deals with really dead people. Very few of our cases turn out to be criminal. The main case I was working on at the time, and I still am actually, was such a case. It was in a rather rural area, with multiple sets of remains found in a place where there should be human remains, just not quite in the situation they were found in. And I know, be more vague, OP, but think of something along the lines of a funeral home fire. Nothing suspicious, and you'd expect to find remains in the debris. This was a similar situation. However, dead humans found in odd situations usually means there still has to be an investigation. For a number of reasons, it was decided that we would just set up a mobile lab in an isolated building, not far from the original scene, instead of moving everything to our lab. The building was similar to a town hall or a dance studio or something, and it mostly consisted of one large room with two smaller storage rooms in the back. One room had a fire exit that could only be opened from the inside, and the other had a single door that we were using to get in and out of the building. The front of the building had a set of double doors that led into a small entryway with toilets on either side, and another set of double doors in front that led to the big main room of the building that I worked in. Both sets of doors were unlocked, so I could get equipment in and out. However, when I wasn't moving equipment, there was a police car parked in front of the doors, and the area was roped off with police tape. And I swear, this is all relevant. Now, while this wasn't an active crime scene, I was still working with forensics evidence, so I had 2 to 3 uniformed officers on rotation as security. So there I am, working away by myself, when Officer 1 comes sprinting in, telling me to drop everything and get the heck out now. He actually hauled me out the last few feet, as apparently I wasn't moving quickly enough. He then dragged me out and around the front of the building, and I think you've all pretty much guessed who was there. Insane Granny was outside, and she was being insane. Or, more accurately, she was kicking and screaming on the ground, while Officers 2 and 3 tried to restrain her. The woman is shrieking like a toddler, and Officer 1 is basically dragging me under the police tape and across the road, while talking about getting to a safe distance. And why exactly did we have to get to a safe distance? Because Insane Granny had opened the building's first set of double doors and dumped a can of gas in the doorway. The only reason the whole place hadn't gone up in flames was because Officer 3 had caught her before she could light it. The 2 officers then tried to restrain her, while Officer number 1 was sent to get me out. And yeah, the bitch basically tried to trap me in the building and set fire to it. Now I'm not gonna go into specifics here, but she effed herself royally by trying to set that particular building on fire. Not only because she attempted to trap people, mainly me inside, but remember when I said it was being used as a mobile lab? Yeah, that means it officially contains material that still is considered evidence in an ongoing police investigation. And she did this all while out on bail, elevating the charges to aggravated, and guaranteeing her a prison sentence measured in years. She's currently in prison. I'm not giving a list of charges, but yeah, they were serious. I will say that her prison sentence was for over 3 years. The kid and the kid's parents were told about the incident the day it happened, and they were at the trial. They're still together. The kid's dad apologized to me a few times, and he's no longer defending his mother anymore. Holy cow, that was a wild story, guys. Like, it just kept getting worse and worse. And yeah, some people do feel like they have to get revenge on those who've wronged them. And literally going after OP and trying to end her for, quote, destroying her family is, for the lack of a better word, insane, because that's what it is, guys. Like, everything she did, from trying to get her social services friend to take the daughter away from the family, to stalking OP, to stalking the parents, to trying to burn buildings down. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that she should be locked up. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r slash entitled people episode, another one, where a Karen tries to move into OP's house and it does not end well for her. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.